We're live.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network, and I am Celeste Giordano, your show host, along with my co-host, Sarah Poe, and we're the Global Legacy and Wealth Building. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. And last but not least, our disclaimer, the topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG Network. And thank you for your continued support. Well, good afternoon, ladies. I'm so glad to have each and every one of you on the show here today. And I'm glad to have Sarah as my co-host with Post Accounting Services. How's things going, Sarah, with the tax season? Are we winding down?
Oh, we're supposed to be, but we got another 17 days to go.
Okay, very good.
Day.
I hear you. Well, we're just glad. We're glad to have you on the show as a co-host with us, and we have a great show lined up for today. You know, with the COVID, you know, we're coming out of this pandemic where we have the vaccine, people are getting vaccinated, things are opening up, and we have an amazing group of ladies with us here today. We're going to hear from the officers of the Xperience Connection about the power of relationship marketing, and we're going to start with the XCCO, Carol Neal. So Carol, what is Xperience Connection?
Thank you, Celeste, and thank you for having us here. First of all, congratulations, almost a year of reaching out and helping create a legacy of wealth building for entrepreneurs. That is fantastic, and we are just delighted to be part of it today. So thank you very much for reaching out and asking us to contribute. I'm really delighted to share about Xperience Connections here just a little bit. We do have the expert on here as well, but we are a women's networking organization. We are celebrating 19 years of supporting and empowering women. We currently have 15 active locations with 23 leaders. They host or co-host, some of them there's 2 at a location, monthly meetings, usually in their home or place of business. With Xperience Connections, there are no membership fees. We usually have 10 to 25 women at a meeting. Obviously, since COVID, a little safer, a little smaller meetings. But again, no membership fees. If they go to a meeting where there's a meal, a lunch or dinner, it's $20. If they meet with us online, it's $10. And in addition to open networking and a little bit of education and all, they have 3 minutes to share about their business. That may not sound like a lot to some people, but in the world of speed networking, 3 minutes is really, really good. And they get a roster with all the attendees. And I think even more importantly, they get, they're in a area, a community that will foster confidence and a feeling of safety, especially for women that are just starting out in business and don't really know a lot about networking. There is a whole community behind Xperience Connections. And I fell in love with the format that we have. When I first started networking, I had gone to some of that speed networking and it scared me to death. I'm sorry, but you know, those things where you go to the bars and they throw all the cards at you and you're supposed to meet 1,000 people in a few minutes. I didn't like that, but I went to my first, what was then called Joy of Connecting meeting, about 13 years ago, and absolutely fell in love with it. Actually was on a waiting list for 2 years when I applied to be a leader. 2010, I became one of Bonnie's leaders in the Alpharetta Milton area. And then a few years after that, in 2015, my business partner who's on here with us, Tracee, Randall, and I formed Atlanta Business Spotlight. Celeste is very familiar with that. She was one of the authors in one of our second book collaboration on Insider Tips. That's about building relationships here. Here's the first hint. It's been a long time since we did that, but Celeste remembered us and reached out because we have a relationship now. But Bonnie saw what we were doing at the Atlanta Business Spotlight, and when she felt it was time for her to take a step back and do some other things, she asked if we would step up. And that's when Atlanta Business Spotlight in 2016 took on the legacy that is Xperience Connection. We were a little nervous, a lot nervous probably, very delighted and just ecstatic to have been given this opportunity. As I said, it's always been very near and dear to my heart. And we're excited with what we have been able to do with it. And we had 300 members in our online group when we took over. We now have 3,400. But we owe that success to the legacy and the platform that Bonnie Ross Parker built. And she is our founder. Some of you may know her as the Connection Diva, the Boot Lady. She has one of the few people that I know that actually went to college and studied networking, and she is the expert. And I would love, Celeste, if it's okay, let her tell you a little bit about how she started JOC and XC and what it's meant to her.
Absolutely, we would love that, and I would love for you to introduce her.
Bonnie? Well, she is just everything I just said. She's the founder of Xperience Connections. She has a great rapport with all sorts of different networking groups. I mean, not just women. She has been out there when she was in Atlanta and just hitting it. She was doing networking meetings all the time, but she is an author. She has incredible inspirational stories. I don't want to take anything away from what she wants to share, but through her cancer journey, through some other journeys she's been through, she is an inspiration daily to men and women around the world. And this is our XC founder, the boot girl, Bonnie Ross Parker.
There we go.
Oh, thanks, Carol. I was looking for my halo before we got home, but
I know.
find it. I don't know what I did with it, but I'll have it for next time. Thanks, Celeste, for having us on, and of course, Sarah and Tracee. I don't get to see my women that often. You know, Joy of Connecting, one of those decisions that will always be one of the best decisions. I always say to my husband, Phil, you know, you were one of my best decisions ever. I was very involved in networking, network marketing, as Carol mentioned. That's where I sort of started my networking. But before that, I actually was a pretty successful woman in business. I was part of the launch of mailboxes, etc., back in the 80s, when it was hardly a known entity. Now, as you know, it's the UPS store. And I mention that because that's really where I began the foundation of my networking, because I knew that if I stayed in the store, my cash register was not going to ring and business was not going to happen. So I joined the Chamber of Commerce. That was back in suburban Maryland, joined the Chamber and so on. But one of the things that I recognized while I was in it was that women, and this is the corporate office now, the UPS store, so I could talk about MBE. MBE corporate was not very supportive of women, and there were a lot of things that we as women had to endure that some of our male colleagues did. And I had not only six, I mean, I had 28 stores, of which I owned 6, but even though I was very successful in that endeavor, when I sold in 83 to 95 and remarried and moved to Atlanta, I said to Phil that I was going to find a way to support women in business. I had no idea what that was going to look like. JOC was not on the radar at the time, but I just knew that I was going to find a way that women would feel the kind of support that I didn't have. And I don't think that that's unusual. I think a lot of the progress that's made, men and women, comes from bad experiences turned into productive, good experiences. So it was a few years. I mean, I moved in 95, JOC didn't start to 2002. But I became a publisher of a newspaper and there were other things. But my heart was always in supporting women. And wherever I went, that was where my attraction was. So in 2002, I started to do my own event, not even thinking about expanding it into any sort of a licensed program. Susan Gooding Stewart, who now lives in Nashville, Tennessee, was coming to my event, and out of the clear blue one day, she said, you know, you're a franchise owner. You should be franchising this. And I'm like, what? She said, you're only doing it in your area. What about all the other women in the other areas? And I've always acknowledged her for giving me the push, being the catalyst to do this. And as Carol mentioned, we're now 19 years out. The pride I have, not in what I've created, it's the pride of who's been attracted to what we offer. Women who care about other women, women who support other women. And Carol and Tracee and I know that women have come to us that have been under horrible circumstances. They may have lost a loved one. They may have overcome things that none of us want to imagine for anyone we care about, but they still find a home. I've had a woman that walked in whose fiance died just a week before. I've had women walk in that were part of network marketing and the corporate office closed, but somehow, Carol's nodding, Tracee's nodding, somehow they found their way to us. So my joy, my pride, my commitment to support women has exponentially grown so that we are now a solid, comforting place for women to come, to allow themselves to be vulnerable, to be honest, and to support each other, not just in business, but in their personal lives. And maybe one day we ought to write a book about that, Carol and Tracee, like what has JOC done beyond business, because it's really the relationships. And I have brought that same consciousness to my community here in Florida, not the chapter, but caring about people in the neighborhood and wanting to support them on all levels. So I'm grateful to MBE that they treated me the way they did, because that was the catalyst for where I am now and where I hope our future will be. So maybe a little long, but that's the heart of what we're doing right now. So thank you for asking, Brittany.
Absolutely. Sarah, you got any questions for Bonnie?
So I love your enthusiasm on how women and working with women, because I came from corporate America to my own business. And in corporate America, when I first started, it wasn't always pleasant for a woman. You had to be strong. You had to be able to deflect certain things that happened. And you had to stand your ground, so to speak. And in manufacturing, there was not a lot of women, right? So this would have been awesome during that time to have something like this to support the few women that were in manufacturing. So I give you kudos for doing that. And so your first group was, where was the first group started?
Well, I was in Smyrna.
Okay, in Smyrna,
Georgia. And I think I said one, but I think my first roster was August 21st, 2002. I can't tell you exactly when I had my first license. We called it license back then. But what I did was I took a group of women that had been my regulars and I created a focus group. That's how I sort of began the process, which I felt was a prudent way to go. Not, I'm going to commit, I'm going to make this happen. What can we do to bring this vision to? And of the 10 women that were there at the time, 5 of them stepped up and opened up chapters, and then the chapters grew from that. And we've had bigger numbers. I think that there wasn't the internet back then. There wasn't Facebook back then. There were so many organizations that didn't exist back then. So yes, we have competition. Yes, there are other ways that women, because we're a women's organization, can connect. But our model has still stood the test of time. And I'm hoping after COVID, and Carol's going to be addressing this later, that women will start to see what they've missed and why they want to come back again. But thanks, Sarah, because I'm sure you and I offline could compare stories for hours because mine were not pleasant either. So I'm glad that you not only recognize that, but that you have found a heart in having your own,
yes. And I said this to somebody today. Can you imagine if the pandemic happened 10 years ago? I mean, before we had all of our connections, right? I mean, you wouldn't have been able to do what we're doing today 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's just something to think about in a positive way. Not that it happened, but it happened later when we were able to connect with one another.
Well, I got to put in one plug, and that's for Carol and Tracee, well, the two of them together. But our tagline, Sarah, is "Women Make It Happen." And that's exactly what they did with the technology. Well, we're not going to give up. We're going to find a way. And really, the online's become popular because it attracts people anywhere, anytime, you know, or during the day or in the evening. They can't go to an event, but just like you, if you're working from home, they can plug in and be part of our community. So it's the techno. When she thought about that, I said, oh my God, that's like a brainstorm, you know. So I'm fortunate that we've been able to keep going. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And, you know, Bonnie, I've been in direct sales. I think it's going on my 43rd year. And back in the late 70s, there were very few women in direct sales. And I had a couple of franchises, and the franchises were predominantly male. We were an international company with 850 distributors, with only 21 women distributors in the world. And you really, I mean, I hate to say this, but you really had to fight for everything you wanted as a woman back in those days. And we didn't have, like Sara said, networking groups. And I know the chamber has been around, but we just didn't have a lot of empowering, supporting women groups to help us succeed in an entrepreneurial world.
Well, a lot's changed. And like I just said to Sara, I mean, my experience with mailboxes, when I sold my whole organization. That's all the stores, the area, and everything back to corporate. And I just couldn't believe, and then I remarried in 95. I actually had women call me that were franchise developers, which I was in the DC suburban area. I can't believe you left. Don't you know that you've been our spokesperson? And you know what I said? And I'm saying it as sure as I'm sitting here. It would have been nice if you'd been in the trenches with me. It's almost like they expected me to be their mouthpiece, but they didn't do enough to stand their ground, and I took a lot of heat. So it's fine because I'm where I am and we are where we are. But as I said at the top of my time with everyone, that it takes sometimes the bad times to create the vision for the good ones. And we have the good ones, and that's not going to go away anytime soon.
You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. And I remember back in 1987 or 88, I had a mailbox, etc., place for my franchise and off of Spalding Drive.
Where was Spalding? Okay, go ahead.
Spalding Drive. And the ladies there was two ladies that were partners, and they were just phenomenal ladies. They became dear, dear friends. We would have come over for the holidays and stuff like that, but they were just wonderful, wonderful ladies. And I think the world of them. All right, Sara, let's get going here. How about we talk now with Tracee Randall? And Tracee, you are the Chief Motivational Officer. What does that mean to XC?
Well, I tell you, I bring the energy to any room, and I love XC so much. And when Carol and I were asked by Bonnie to, and thank you for having me, and thanks for asking that. When Carol was asked, Carol was already a leader. And we were so honored that Bonnie thought enough of us to, ask us to take over Xperience Connections and continue the legacy. And that's what I have always done, is just be a motivator, an encourager. I'm really great at that. You know, Carol and I looked at what we were great at, and she was the leader and I was the encourager. So when we were coming up with titles, that just seemed to fit me. But I tell you, I'm one of those women that Xperience Connections completely changed my life. And when I, even thought that I would be an officer of a company such as this that motivates and encourages women and supports women, it just blew my mind, really. I had met, if you don't mind, I'd love to share kind of my experience with Xperience Connections and how it changed my life and why I'm such a great motivator of people. But I met Carol when I was in the midst of having some very severe panic and anxiety attacks. And I'd been having them all of my life, but they had escalated. I was probably in my mid-40s at the time, believe it or not. And
you're only 20. How could that be?
Right? And my husband had forced me to go work out, get out of the house. I didn't leave my house. I was very, very fearful of women, especially successful women. I felt like I didn't measure up. I was very intimidated by women. And even though I'd seen some success in the past, the fear had just overtaken me. So my husband bought me a membership to a women's only workout facility. And I started going there during the day just to get out of the house. And Carol was there with her mom. And we began to talk as we, did the circuit together and became friends. And we were both in the direct sales industry at the time. I was definitely struggling with that because it's so competitive and so fierce in that world, as we all know. And Carol had some experience with it. And so we became good friends. And then she invited me to come to an Xperience Connections meeting. And I tell you, she pulled me to that meeting kicking and screaming. I didn't want to go. I was actually better in large crowds than I was in more intimate crowds, because in more intimate crowds, you have to be yourself, right? You have to really have a conversation. And that frightened me the most, but she promised she would hold my hand the whole way. And I went to that first meeting. There were just a handful of women. And what I really love about Xperience Connections is that it's in someone's home. It is more private. You don't have to be put on airs or fake. You can't be. They'll see right through it. And the women there were so, one thing you said, you had to fight for everything you got. And Sara, you talked about competition. With Xperience Connections, there's no competition. It is the most amazing group. Every single chapter, every single, what's it called, Carol? Help me out. Location. Every single location is so different based on the personality of the leadership, but yet you know what to expect, because there's
format.
A format. Yeah. See, I love it. See, this is why she's the CEO and I'm the motivational officer. She just feeds me and I feed her. But anyway, long story short, that changed my life, because now I could trust women. Now I had people I could trust with my business, with my friendship, with, just being myself. And honestly, it was Xperience Connections that gave me the strength and power to become a speaker to thousands, an author, a published author, a best-selling author, and just being able to turn around and encourage other women that have those same fears, because there are many women that look successful in the outside, but inside they're just so afraid. And I can't tell you how many women we've held their hand while they stood up to do their first 3 minutes, and now they're so hugely confident and successful. So for me to be able to motivate and encourage women to become the person that God has really created them to be is so much fun, and I love it.
Awesome. Sara, do you remember your first Xperience Connection meeting?
My very first one?
Yeah, your very first one. I remember mine.
No, I'm trying to remember. It was at Diane's house.
It was probably Diane's.
It was Diane's house. And I remember thinking, oh my God, these women, they're gonna eat me alive. But no, they didn't. They were supportive.
Very supportive. Absolutely. And I remember I had just retired from my franchise and started my own consulting business. And the very first Xperience Connection meeting I went to, I was invited by Danella to hers when she was, and I went to Danella, and I think I met Carol. I don't know if both of you were there or not. And I met Fern and Donna, I believe, and I ended up, and I've been to Fern and Donna's, and I've been to Diane's house, and just amazing groups of ladies and friendship. And I can always say the food is always awesome.
Oh, yeah.
when you get together. But most importantly, the fellowship and the support is just awesome. So I just wanted to see, Sara, I know you've been to many of them as well, if you remember that and the experience that you had. And like you said, Carol, 3 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time, but when you have to get up there, 3 minutes is plenty of time to give your elevator pitch, whatever you want to call it, and tell about yourself and share with people. And I just want to say that coming from a franchise and going into my own consulting business, it was a great stepping stone to move me forward into the community of networking, because I never networked before when I was a franchise owner. And now that was my first step into networking right there. Sarah, anything you'd like to add to that?
Oh, yeah. I hadn't done networking before that, but I had never been to a group with just women, right? It'd always been a mixture. So it was the first experience for me in that regard, being all women. And we all know what women can be like at times, right? But those people weren't there. And I was extremely happy about that. And the food was astronomical. Anytime anybody wants to cook for me, I'll be there.
Exactly.
I don't cook anymore. But yeah, so it was a great experience, and Diane did a good job. And I think Stephanie was her partner at that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stephanie,
Because that's how I met Stephanie. Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. You have any more questions, Sarah? Would you like to ask some questions?
Carol, can you elaborate on what you mean by relationship marketing?
Absolutely. And what you two have just been talking about, I'd like to take this moment to share our mission statement with you, because a lot of it wraps up what we were saying. Our mission is to encourage and facilitate the growth, the performance, and the integrity of professional women by creating opportunities to foster relationships through a creative exchange of information and referrals. And that kind of says it beautifully all right there. What I think about relationship marketing is, as Tracee said, she and I came from a direct sales background, and we had a lot of fantastic mentors and training in there. But one of the emphasis was to go, 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 get. I mean, I remember the thing was, you've got to talk to 15 people every day. You put 15 pennies in one pocket, move them over to the other, make sure you talk to those people. And my mindset at that time was, I would go into a meeting, who can I sell to? Who's going to join my team? I was like laser focused on that. And of course, people can smell that a mile away. What I have learned through Xperience Connections was you build relationships first. I totally have flipped my mindset. It's not, what am I going to get out of this? It's, let me go with a goal instead of how many people I'm going to meet, or am I going to sell something today? My goal now is, how many people can I find good referrals for? How many people can I connect? Because I love that our icebreaker this month is, what's your superpower? And I told the ladies on my XC earlier today, I've decided it's because I'm a puzzle solver, and I like to take puzzle pieces, whether it's people making connections or businesses or putting an event together or a book together or whatever we're doing. I like to make the pieces fit and think outside the box to do that. And I think once you flip that mindset to a servant mindset, as opposed to, that you're walking into a room looking for who you can sell, and just, how can I connect the people? And Tracee's got a great story on how you kind of build those relationships and do that. But that's it to me. The relationship has to come first. You can't walk into a meeting and expect, I mean, it may happen. You may have a tremendous sale that very first time. You never know. Tracee talked about, where we met going around the circuit at the fitness center where we were. It was a while before we actually started connecting on a business level. The friendship came first. And I've always been so grateful for that. You think about 1 minute this way or that way, we wouldn't have met. And I like to feel that between the two of us, because we met, that we have impacted a whole bunch of other people, but we've been able to grow ourselves and provide for our families and do what we needed to do. But it's because that relationship was there. You've got to trust the people. You always hear that, that women, we network word of mouth too. We refer word of mouth. We're going to tell somebody, the truth about somebody and the service they got. And that's why building these relationships, this person that you just met at this meeting may not mean anything to you today, but if you make a good impression and you be of service to them, invite them to another meeting, clip out an article about something that they're interested in, tell them about an event where they can be a vendor at. If you go out of your way to be of service to them, you will be top of mind when they hear somebody who needs what you have. So the business comes. It came my first year as an XC leader. Tracee's my witness that I hit first in the nation in our company, made a very nice bonus check. And I look back, it came from 4 legs of business that didn't come from people that came to my XC, but people that had referred from, people that came that referred other people that came. That was the power of building those relationships, that came back to reward me, because I changed my mindset, and with that, how can I be of service to people first? If that makes sense. So to me, that's what relationship marketing is. It's not about putting an ad out there now and making a sale right away. It's about building a foundation for the future.
And I couldn't agree with you more on that, Carol. My philosophy is people over profit, number one. And the thing of it is that my tagline, and I tweaked this because I didn't even know what a tagline was or elevator's pitch or anything. And I went to an XC and tell us about yourself. Like, oh, wow. So I had to come up with that. And it is that I help business entrepreneurs, direct sales teams, and corporations exponentially increase sales and profit through lead generation, building relationships, and accountability. And I've stuck to that from day one. And you learned that. And I learned some of that at the Xperience Connection, but I also learned that in my years of direct sales, that it was always over the people, over the profit first.
Absolutely. Well said.
Sarah.
Tracee, what would you like to add to that?
Well, I think what I'd like to share is the story that Carol was saying that I had. We did write a collaborative book called Insider Tips, and it was about networking. And when you go to a networking meeting, typically what happens is, you can see the writing on the wall. People come up to you, especially one not an Xperience Connections, because it is so different. It forces you to build a relationship even from the beginning with the icebreaker. You get to know something about the people that's outside of their business, which is awesome. But if you're going to a regular networking meeting, typically what happens is people walk up to you and they say, "Hi, what do you do?" And your answer is, "Well, I'm in insurance. What do you do?" And then where do you go from there? Because we all know 50 people in insurance. We all know 50 people that are a business coach. We know a lot of people in business. So what's going to make that connection? What's going to make that relationship work? So the title of my little tip was "The person that asks the most questions wins." So I always will build that relationship first. So I don't even answer their question, because I want to be the person asking the question. So as an example, someone comes up to me and say, "Hey, what do you do?" And I'll say, oh, hi, it's so nice to meet you. I just ignore the question. "Who invited you here tonight?" "Oh, what area of the city do you live in?" And you throw them off guard. And guess what? People love to talk about themselves. They don't really care what you do, because most people are at a networking event to sell, or to find somebody that will buy their product or their service. They don't understand relationship marketing, so they don't really care what you do. That's just what they say. So you've got to stand out in the crowd. You've got to make yourself memorable. So I'll ask them, what do you like best about what you do? Because they'll want to tell you right away what they do. So if you start asking them those questions, and when they start talking about themselves, they, for some reason, are very attracted to you. They really like you. They want more conversation with you, right? Because you've got them talking about yourself. So when I go to a networking event, not an XC, but just a normal networking event, much of the time we walk away without people really knowing what I do. But the next step is, now they like me, they want to know more about me, and there's not time in a networking event to you don't want to just stand there with one person. So and they don't understand that knowing more about me is going to be important to them, and they're going to want to help me. So we schedule a coffee. And now we're building a relationship. I ask them about, Celeste, when you started, before we even got on, you said, "How's your family? How's your mom? How is everybody good?" And that's what people do business with, people they know, like, and trust. Yes, I know 10 real estate agents. I know 10 insurance people, but who is it that's going to nurture my friend? Who is it that I feel confident that I can refer to, and they won't become a vulture, a salesy person. So it's all about building those relationships, and the person that asks the questions wins. So I ask a lot of questions, get to know people, and then you've got to listen also. You've got to remember. And, you know, I might walk away and write down 5 kids, you know, this is what she liked best, and really just begin to build that relationship even right there in that meeting. So if I meet 5 people in a room of 10 or 20 or 50, that's 5 people that know 100 people.
You know,
and I'm successful.
Absolutely. And so I would like to talk a little bit about this. And Sarah, I'd like for you to chime in with me. So, you know, when you're out there networking and going to networking meetings, whether it be an Xperience connection or any other, is somebody, and Carol opened up with this, people go there and they want to talk about me, and they're out there selling. And I teach all my clients, you go to a networking meeting with intention. And, you know, and there may, like you said, Tracee, there may be 15, 20 people in the room, but really I only want to meet 3 people that I can build a relationship from that particular meeting that I can take to the next level. And again, that doesn't mean that I won't meet some other ones down the road, but I really do my homework. You know, when we have these events, you know who's going to the events, and, you know, do your homework. Look at these people. I want to meet this person, or I'd like to meet this person, and learn everything you can about them. And like you said, Tracee, you know, asking questions, the person who asks questions wins. And I couldn't agree with you more, is people don't care how much you know, do they know how much you care. And when I go to a networking meeting, what I'm doing is I am asking questions. And when they ask you a question, I always answer with a question.
Yes,
so
yes.
that keeps the conversation going.
Right.
So, and then I want to put it back on them because I want people to talk about themselves.
Absolutely.
Sarah, any comments on that?
Yeah, I would go, and I'm like you, Tracee, I ask a lot of questions. And this is one question I always asked, and it was always surprising the answers I would get. What did you want to be when you were growing up? Right? Because you get all kinds of answers, right? Because I wanted to be a rockette. Well, that wasn't going to happen, but you know, it's just interesting to hear the answers that people come up with, because you learn a little bit about people, and then the next time you see them, you go, "Did you watch the Rockettes lately?" You know. But you know, it was just a good way, asking questions to learn about people and to build that relationship. I totally agree with all of that.
And Sarah, it makes you memorable. You're going to be the one that asked them what they wanted to be when they grew up, right? And they're going to remember you over all the rest of the people there.
Right.
And you know, you got to stand out from the crowd. You got to be different.
You know, and that's, go ahead, Sarah.
And I'm like Celeste, I went with fewer people. In the beginning, I was like you, Carol, cards. But I left there, I didn't know any of those people.
Right.
So I would do 2 or 3. And I would try to set up at least one coffee or one lunch or one something by the time I left. Yeah. And I did so much better doing it that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, I want to give some kudos here. You know, Sarah and I, we have some networking opportunities ourselves. We do with our group with the Women of Community Impact. And we have also, through Xperience Connection, and she's been a sponsor with some of our nonprofit events, Lexi and I have enjoyed watching her from meeting her a couple of years ago, and how much she has grown, and as a chapter leader, I don't know what you call them, directors, whatever.
XC Canton leader you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say that, you know, she has just grown so much, and I enjoy following her. She's got a servant heart. She's got a heart of gold. She's donated to our homeless shelter for the women and children on numerous occasions. And I just, she's been a sponsor, and that's a whole nother level in itself, that, you know, to be a sponsor, you want to grow your business, you know, not only go networking, but you need to also invest some money and be a sponsor at some certain events. So I just wanted to give that shout out, because I really appreciate Lexi and everything that she has done in supporting our nonprofit organization that we have. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Hopefully she's watching.
She'll watch it. Go ahead, Sarah.
So Bonnie, you stated this concept. What does relationship marketing mean to you?
Boy, do I have a lot to say, especially listening. Oh my, first of all, I want to say that any possible lesson that I have tried to impart has been multiplied just with a compound multiplication. When I listen to Tracee and what she's talking about asking questions, when I think about, I do an ebook called The Quick Connection, differentiate what she's doing, be memorable, what she's doing. It's just, and make a difference, differentiate, be memorable, make a difference. I feel like that's the kind of thing that could be on everybody's, logo, because setting yourself in a different way, being memorable. Why are we remembering some of the people? You talked about Lexi and Sarah brought somebody up. Why? Because they did something different. They left a positive imprint on your heart. When you go back and you think, I always say, when you're in the next scene, you get in the car, I always think to myself, this is what you would have missed had you not been there. This is what you would have missed if you said, oh, I don't feel like getting dressed. Oh, it's raining outside, whatever. So there are a couple of things, I mentioned that, but about relationships. I like to call leadership, lead her ship for leadership. So that's something I want you to remember, leadership. But on Sunday, I go to a non-denominational worship service. And I'm mentioning this because it fits exactly with what's going on here. We all know the expression, what's in it for me? Okay, this just happened Sunday. What's in it for me? And this entire sermon was, what's in it from me? And it was so
I like that. That is powerful.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Taking notes.
What are you doing for yourself? But what are you bringing from yourself to somebody else? And I found that so meaningful. And I discussed it with Reverend afterwards. I said, that was like one of the most powerful things ever. So that's something I wanted to mention. The other thing that Tracee mentioned when we're talking about leadership, and you said your lack of confidence, that you weren't sure, whatever. I consider leadership with two components, confidence and competence. How you feel about yourself and what are you doing that leads, that shows that you are taking those qualities and you're demonstrating them. You can have competence and not feel confident and say, oh, I should have done it better. Oh, it wouldn't have happened if. You can have confidence, but not like, Tracee was saying, she says, I wanted to go to this event with Carol. I knew I needed to do it, but she didn't have the confidence. When she got there, she had the confidence to carry it out. So it's all about, what's in it from me. And are you taking your leadership and really demonstrating in a very positive way how you can, I don't want to say perform, how you can bring yourself to a situation and how you can exhibit that you care. And that's really what we're talking about. One of the things that I used to sign all of my emails, I haven't done it. Well, actually, I still do it. I always used to sign, make every connection count. And the women that are here, Sarah and Celeste probably wouldn't know this because it was sort of my signature closing. And it goes like this. You never know who you're going to meet and the difference you can make in someone's life. You never know who you're going to meet and the difference they might make in your life. Introduce people you know to people they need to meet. Introduce people you meet to people they need to know. Why? Because you never know. Therefore, make every connection count. And that's something even here in a senior community, I'm very well aware of when people aren't feeling well, to make a phone call, to drop off some food, to make a visit. I learn the birthdays of people so that I can make sure that I acknowledge the birthdays. And they're like, how do you know? Well, I remember you reminded me and I got home and I wrote it in my date timer. So it's about making a difference. It's about making the connections count. And my heart is overflowing with this 45 minutes together so far to just think that the lessons I've learned from my own mistakes and my own, insecurities have transferred and been transformative for others that they can learn and be the best at who they are and make that difference in the world. And I think that's what you were saying when you were talking about Lexi, just that it's more than what she just does as an individual. It's what is in it from her that's made such a terrific impact on you, Celeste, and you, Sara. So relationship marketing, it's really not about marketing as much as it is how much do you care about the women that you're meeting? How much do you care about them as a person? How much do you care about wanting them to meet the right people that can help them along the way? And I at the age of 76, 77, actually, soon to be 77, I'm very humbled by these years, 19 years of working my craft so that other people can work theirs, so that they are front and center with the people that they meet. And it's this is a very empowering time for me to just hear it and know that it's alive and well in the hearts of all of you and in the hearts that you touch. So what is in it from me? And then make every connection count are things that we can easily remember and transfer to everyone else. So thank you again and again and again for allowing me to hear it and allowing me to live it. Thank you.
No, thank you, Miss Bonnie. When I started my consulting business, one of the big taglines is building a legacy business. And Bonnie, I want to say from my heart to your heart, you have built a legacy business and you have left it in great hands with Tracee and Carol. And I know they're like your children to watch them and see how they are flourishing with what you started. And that is going to be a legacy that you have left behind. Any comments that you have about leaving that legacy business, Bonnie?
Well, it's hard for me to talk right now because I really do feel the emotion of what you said. I do. I think the most important thing is that we just do the right thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Right thing. A legacy, I have a whole article that I wrote about leaving a legacy. And, we're not, the president of a big company or multi-million-dollar, earners or anything. The legacy is really the positive imprints. The legacy is not big. The legacy is who you are as a person. Will you be remembered for the things you did do, not for the things you didn't do, And I want to tell you, I just finished the book that's very powerful. I'm in a book club that is addressing racism right now, and it's been very emotional for all of us. And one of the books that I read that just finished and it's an amazing, amazing book called Wake Up White. And when this woman's father was dying, and she was holding his hand, again, white community, white schools, white college, and learning because of that, what she missed and what she learned as a result. That's why, she decided to study racism and also teach it. She wanted to hear from her dad about what you were saying, legacy. And the only thing that he could say is, I wish I had done more. Can you imagine? I wish I had done more. Even on his dying, his death, his hospice last days, he didn't think that he had done enough. And she was floored because she just saw that he had done so much in the community. He had his own reasons. And when he died, she asked her mom, what was it about Dad? What was it that would make him think that he wishes he could have done more and he didn't do enough? And this is what she said. The membership to our community, our country club, excluded Jews. And he knew it was wrong. He knew he was making a mistake, and he wasn't willing to step up and make a decision that was the right decision. And she said he always lived with that regret. So I say that because we all have opportunities. It's not about legacy. It's just about who you are. What are people going to remember? And we all have that opportunity. And the fact that JOC or XC is given a platform to that, I'm forever grateful. Because everyone has a story, and everyone can be supported in that story no matter what. So
Well, thank you for those words of wisdom right there, Bonnie, and thank you for sharing that story about that book. And most importantly, I have a saying that I'm not here to impress you, but I'm here to impress upon your heart to make a difference in the community. And you have made a phenomenal difference in the community here in metropolitan Atlanta and really in many other states that there are Xperience Connection groups. So we thank you and we honor you tonight for everything that you've done, as a woman, as a leadership, and we just appreciate you so much. Miss Sara.
So, Carol, what's new for XC? We've talked about a lot of things, and now coming out of the pandemic and different things, what's on the horizon for you?
Okay, well, a couple things, probably a lot more things. Bonnie has totally re-inspired me tonight, to think even bigger. But we talked about silver linings of the pandemic earlier, and one of the silver linings was we did step out of our comfort zone and take our XC meetings online. We couldn't have made it through the last year if we hadn't allowed our leaders to do that. And almost all of them took that step with us. We do have a few that are still waiting to open back, and that's fine. And everybody that's opening back and meeting in the homes is doing it safely, a little bit at a time, being really careful. But the fact that we took it online, the big silver lining was that we could reach out to other places. Celeste, you mentioned the expansion. Right now, all those 15 locations are in Georgia. However, at one point, before I think the 2008 crash, Bonnie, she had locations all over the United States.
That's right.
Would love to see that happen again. Since we've been doing Zooms now, I've had people from the West Indies, from Barbados, and all over the United States. And some of those women have expressed interest in getting something going in those areas. So we're definitely looking for leaders in those areas. And the big thing is we're stepping out of our comfort zone, and we're saying that going forward, we're going to continue to allow women, to choose. Do you want to hold in-house meetings? Do you want to just do online? Or does that work better for you? Because sometimes what was stopping a woman from becoming a leader was just that she didn't have a place to hold a meeting, or her home, whatever situation didn't support it, or she didn't feel that she could do that part of it, but that she can do it online. Or they're doing a combination. I co-lead with Amanda Johnson, XC Alpharetta Milton, still after all these years. And we're going to have our first in-house meeting since the pandemic, since Amanda became my co-leader in January at her house at the end of this month on the 28th. So we're excited. We're going to continue. We're going to do online and we're going to do in person. So I think seeing how to do that. And then another thing that we had to do last year was our anniversary, which has always been a highlight in the XC year. We would have huge events, lots of vendors, the Country Club or the Metropolitan Club. We had these beautiful events, very well attended with phenomenal speakers. We couldn't do that this past year. But we had a great online event. We're going to take it one step further. Instead of just doing a single online event with speakers this year, our anniversary weekend, our 19 years, August 21st is the date, the weekend of August 21st and 22nd, we're going to shine the spotlight on our leaders this year. Some of them heard that for the first time at my XC earlier today. Some of them are hearing it for the first time on here today. They'll be getting details soon, but we're going to give each of them an opportunity to host their own live segment in our open group. There's not going to be any charge to people to come and hear from them. We're going to ask our leaders to share their tips, just like I kind of got some chills about hearing some of this tonight. I wrote down some more notes, but for everybody to, to kind of share some insider tips, their perspective, because you never know what that one thing's good. Somebody could hear the same thing a dozen times, a slightly different way. Clicks. So they're going to get a chance to host their own segment. They can still talk about their businesses. So this is a great incentive also for those that are ready, to come back. If they want to join us in leadership, do it before that August date, because you'll get your own segment as well. So that's part of what's happening for us. And I'm sure as we learn to pivot even further as things go on, we'll come up with more ideas and things. But right now, we just want to start expanding again and celebrate these 19 years and celebrate our leaders, because they are the heart. Obviously there's no XC without our leaders, our individual locations. As I was saying, the format's the same, but it's our leaders that bring that little bit of difference to each one. They're the ones out there beginning, building a relationship and getting hopefully as much out of it as they're putting into it. Because we do think, I always call it marketing that pays for itself. It is one of the best, relationship marketing, you can't beat it. And stepping up into leadership is a great role.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad to hear. And Sara, I love your comments on this as well. At this last 12, 13 months with the pandemic, and we went from in-person meetings going to Zoom meetings. And, and there's something to say about Zoom meetings. I don't think they're going away. And I think you're very, very smart to keep those in there and to have, in-person meetings as well as Zoom meetings. So I admire you for that. The other thing, Carol, I want to admire you for is leading by example. Even though you and Tracee have carried the reins here from Bonnie, here you are hosting or co-hosting a chapter yourself. So therefore, you're leading by examples. I have been a chapter director, president, whatever, from other groups before. And, and I always say, it's hard to buy into the leadership that's above you when they don't lead by example or they haven't done what they're asking you to do. So my hat's off to you guys for leading by example and stay that way. And I think that's going to make your business grow even more for that.
And you know who set that example for me?
Absolutely. So how can our listeners get involved? Please, give us your website, your links, phone numbers, email. We want all the information, please, for our listeners.
Thank you. And I have put some of that in the chat, but I want to just invite now I'm going to get to the men too, but because I know you've got a mixed audience, but all the women that are on here, we invite you to go on Facebook to the Xperience Connections open group and ask to join. You're going to be asked 3 questions. You're going to be asked what you do, where you live, just the city, state, and you're going to be asked how you heard about it. And if you put that you heard about it here, you're going to get in for a really quick ad, and I'll get you in it, introduced, and you can start talking about yourself and your business and all that. I also want to encourage you to go to our website. Now that's xperienceconnections.com. And if you haven't picked up on it yet, we do not have a leading E. It starts with an Xperience. That's why we say XP when she rebranded from Joy of Connecting to Xperience Connections. But go to our website under Connect. We have a free online directory for women there. So when you're looking for someone that does a certain type of category, you're looking for someone in a state, you can search and you can find someone that you can feel comfortable with because they're in that XC community, because the only way they're finding out about that, of course, is through XC. So that is a great way for them to connect. And we want to encourage you to do that as well. And of course, we want you to attend some of our meetings. We also, oh man, I promised, I knew I was forgetting something. That's why I was looking for just a sec. So as you heard in the beginning, Tracee and I founded the Atlanta Business Spotlight, which is why Bonnie saw that we could do something at that level together and said, okay, I'll trust them a little bit. But Atlanta Business Spotlight, we do have a very big Facebook group there, and men, you are welcome to join that. You can post 2 ads a day. That was back in the day when Tracee and I formed it. We were doing a lot of events and different things. We're not doing as much of that as well. Kudos to my business partner in her hat there. She came straight from her new position as a master stager, real estate investor and flipper. So she's been involved in that. I've been doing some other things. So we're not doing as much in Atlanta Business Spotlight, which does give us more time to pour into Xperience Connections. But the men can join the Atlanta Business Spotlight group, and women as well, and do there. And Bonnie shared at my XC today a little bit about a wonderful resource that she created that's open to everybody. Bonnie, can you give a shout out for your learning library for just a second?
Yes, and I'd be happy to do that. It's yourlearninglibrary.com, yourlearninglibrary.com. The quick version is I had never, ever even considered, even with mailboxes, et cetera, personal, professional development. But when I was in network marketing, I got invited to a live event to hear Les Brown live, and I was blown away. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had never heard of him. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know anything about his background. Well, that was in '95, so that was a long time ago, and have subsequently become a very strong support and and participant in things that relate to personal and professional development. And as a result of that, I created Your Learning Library, which has 200 combined documents that I've written, interviews that I've done, ebooks and so on, to really help anybody, but particularly it's on a woman's site, navigate their own personal professional development. And if you can just imagine, Carol said, okay, for our 19th anniversary, we're talking about $20, $19.95. Well, 200 pieces for $19.95 is 10 cents each. And I'm like, are you sure? She said, Bonnie, we want to get this to everybody. So the beauty about Your Learning Library, not only as a wide variety, you're not just listening to me. I mean, you're meeting a lot of interesting people that have participated with me. It is a one-time fee. So it's anytime, anywhere, especially with what's going on now, to get a shot in the arm on something from somebody else or be inspired or keep you going. So we would love for others to just take that on, Your Learning Library. You can find out all about it just going online. So thanks, Carol, because I'm hoping that we'll get a lot of women that say, you know what, maybe I should look into personal professional development. I did not interview Les Brown, but I will tell you that Les Brown did endorse my husband's book. So it does help when you meet the right people at the right time for the right reason. So
absolutely, Bonnie. I know we're running out of time here, and we could just talk forever and ever about relationship building and networking. And on behalf of Sarah and I, we can't thank you ladies enough for being our guest here today. And Sarah, I would love for you to please tell our audience about you and how they can get a hold of you. My co-host was Sarah Poe of Poe's Accounting Services, please. It's tax season, so they may need to reach out to you.
Well, I am Sarah Poe with Poe's Accounting Services. My phone number is 770-545-8841, or my email is spoe@poecpas.com. And it is tax season. And for all you individuals who haven't done it yet, you now have till May 17th to file and pay. So just know that.
Absolutely.
They've given you 17 extra days, so don't blow it.
Absolutely. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being our co-host. Bonnie, thank you so much for honoring us today and your words of wisdom. Carol and Tracee, it's always a blessing to have both of you on the show, and the support that you give, the empowerment to the ladies with the Xperience Connection Group. God bless you. Have a wonderful, blessed day. We appreciate you. Bye-bye.